right, we're live. There we go. Now you can hear me, right? Oh man, this audio setup thing is crazy tonight. But hey, welcome everyone. I am Nathan Hill at Nathan J Hill on Twitter. Welcome to Big D After Dark. I know there is no soccer going on right now, but we're gonna have some fun together. We're gonna talk. We're gonna catch up, and we're excited, of course, to have our regular friends here: Ben Lyon at Bird Turgler and Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona, and especially the legend himself. All right, Bobby Warshaw at B Warshaw one dot at Twitter. So Bobby is joining us again. Joined us last season. Thank you, Bobby, for being with us. I hope you are safe. I hope everyone is safe in this strange, unusual time of the lockdown. And so we're going to get right into it. And we want your questions, everybody. Please send in your questions if you have one. If not, we'll just keep the conversation rolling here. So, Bobby, first question, since this lockdown is crazy for everybody. We're all figuring it out. But I've just been thinking about this as we fans have been looking on and thinking, frustrated that we're not getting to see the season unfold. We're missing our soccer. But from that pro soccer player perspective, what is this like? And I know you've never experienced anything really like that per se. But like you go through preseason, you play a couple of weeks, you're trying to build up that rhythm, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
how do you get through it? How do you stay focused? And
Well, the main thing that I would feel throughout all of it is this is a chance to show yourself. This is a chance to separate yourself because there's a lot of people out there who, even though they're professional athletes, don't like to work out that much. It's kind of a dirty little secret of the profession. They don't actually like to work out. They don't like to watch soccer. They don't like to do all these tiny little margins. And if you're someone that does, if you are willing to do those workouts on the bike, on the mat, by yourself at home and watch games and study film, you have a chance to separate yourself and make yourself a little bit better. So that's what I would be thinking. I'd be thinking this sucks, but it's also an opportunity to gain a competitive advantage.
so, like, when you say competitive advantage, you mean anything, right? From game film, scouting
Yeah, you can
ahead, kind
watch.
of.
So the first part is staying fit, right? And how do you keep your fitness up with what you eat, with your workouts, with your prehab, right? Taking care of your core, taking care of your glutes, your stomach, all these things when you get back on the field. That's the base, right? And then beyond that, are you still doing your technical work? Are you, if you don't have a yard, if you're in the city, are you just moving couches out of the way in the living room and doing core work, finding a wall to use, finding juggling exercises? And then I would say the third phase would be the mental, watching film, doing meditation, doing visualization, doing just general character building. Because these are all things that are more important now than ever. We would talk about them 5, 10 years ago, but they weren't, meditation and mindfulness was not a real part of training. And now there are players out there who are doing that, whether it's managed by their clubs or just on their own, to try and improve that, 0.01% of their game. But, that's what matters at that level.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, and from your experience, like, uh, we've talked a little bit here and there. There's been rumors. Of course, it's not at least until June that Major League Soccer, for instance, would get back. Um, what's a reasonable time frame for a player coming out of this to get fit, to get back in rhythm, in a way that protects
Okay.
them?
Yeah. I'm harsh about that. I would say like 0. You're a pro. And listen, I actually had a crash course in this when I was in college, right? So I'm at Stanford. I'm somewhere in that entire day. Back in the day when you would have, higher draft picks or higher prospects, I was in that. I felt confident I was going to go pro. And I went to train with Chivas USA when Preki was the head coach. Jesse Marsh, Sasha Kleshin, Brad Guzan, Ante Jazic. And it was the summer. So I'm a college kid. I want to take some time off. I come in and I'm unfit. And I shouldn't say it. I played really well, but we did a fitness test and I was last because I just wasn't ready for a fitness test. And Preki says, if you want to do this for a living, you have to be ready at all times. There's no not being fit as a professional. And that always stuck with me. And I would say that that's true now. So if you're a pro, yeah, you might not be at your best, But if you can't go out there and at least perform, especially given the circumstances, right? Like nothing in this world is ideal. If you can't go out right now on a day's notice and perform to a point that fans would appreciate, then it's not the job for you. And I'm not saying we should expect the best soccer or everyone to be at their best, but I'll be a little bit ruthless and say, listen, this is your job. If they tell you that you should have been fit this whole time and you've got to go play tomorrow to give fans what they've been craving and what they deserve, that's what we should expect of them.
Love it. I love it. I mean, and you're right. You're right. There's, we Jose, is there a party going on there at your place?
Sorry, my girlfriend's a gamer and she's swearing in the background. That can't be helped.
She's taking some people out. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I love it. It's an unusual time. We're all, and I appreciate it. I know injury, keeping people fit and avoiding injuries is part of that. But you're right. This is an unusual time, and we just don't know when things are going to happen, and the players don't know either. I mean, June maybe.
Yeah, I'm expected, and the finances behind this are so interesting between the different leagues. I read these things about when's the Premier League going to play? Are they going to play? And I think to myself, hell yeah, the Premier League has like $1 billion on the line. It's not $1 billion because they already played 28 weeks, whatever it is. But they have so much money on the line that it would be shocking that they don't figure out how to play. MLS is much more complicated, right? Because what is it, 105 million per team per year? It's much smaller, and a lot of these teams make a huge amount of their money off game day. So it's way more complicated for MLS teams to figure out when they're going to play. Like everyone else, I hope it's soon, though.
Have you, in your career, do you ever remember playing in front of an empty stadium and what that was like?
Hell yeah, man! I played FC Dallas, of course. What are you talking about? Wait, how are you going to set me up for that, Nathan?
I know. Well, we've already joked about that. I mean, we've already joked about
dude, I remember playing Toro from Panama in Champions League. And guys, I don't know if you remember this. First of all, there were like 12 people in the crowd. It was like a Tuesday in the middle of summer. These dudes warmed up in just bibs. They were shirtless. They did shirts versus skins in warm-up, and the shirts were only wearing bibs. And there weren't even enough people in the crowd to tweet about it.
That's wild. Well, yeah, I mean, I know that's the easy joke for FC Dallas, and for a while, Chivas USA was there, has some games like that too. Houston, they always say it's a sellout, but man, sometimes those crowds are thin out there.
Here's what I'll say about the crowds. And somebody told me this once too, and I think it's true. It is easier to play in front of big crowds, and you can see real professionals when there's not as many people in the fans. Sure, you want me to close a player down in front of 30,000 people, I can do it. You want me to get back and transition in front of 30,000 people, I can do it. You want me to do it when it's like 22 of us and a coach and just one person in the crowd? That's a little harder, right? To do all of the little details just because it's in your head, in your heart, the right thing to do, that's tougher. And I'm looking forward to seeing, especially in MLS, right? When you have a lot of not journeymen, what's the word I'm looking for? What is it when you go to do something just for the money or just for the stepping stone? We often talk about it with war. I'll think of the word. You have a lot of these people who are really just
mercenary.
A mercenary. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. You have a lot of these like athletic professional mercenaries. If you don't have the 30,000 people rocking the stands in Portland or in LA or Miami, like, are they going to do those little things?
It seems like, especially the North American landscape, like, if you're gonna make it through the soccer ranks, you're gonna experience those games where there's 10 people. I mean, because some college games are gonna be like that too. It's not necessarily the draw like other sports and things, but So yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting to think about that. I mean, because I think we're all thinking maybe that's what happens in June is that we just get televised games with just staff. The barest minimum of people in these stadiums, and that'll be.
I want to ask a question about that, by the way. Since we're talking about when does MLS return, my question is, will they have a second preseason or will they jump right into it?
Oh, they'll
I
have
mean,
a
that's
pre.
going to be pretty wild.
I would be shocked if they didn't have at least 2 weeks. Like I said, I would be okay if they didn't. This whole idea that they have the, I don't know, that it should be granted to them is overblown to me. Like I said, this is your job. It's a crazy time in the world. I would be surprised if they didn't have at least 2 weeks though. And you go back to the at-home training. A lot of teams have been holding this close to their vest, but I think we'll be able to tell who used this training time wisely in terms of team and tactics and organization. And I give you an example, right? And I'm not talking about MLS team, but as a side hobby for fun, I coach an under 15 girls team here in New York City. And we have been training 3 times a week, which is what we had set for outside. And every 3 times a week, we do tactics, right? We pull up our Zoom sessions. We have videos lined up on our computer, and we talk through our build outs, our pressing, our blocks, all of these things with our girls. And I do truly feel like we had a marginal gain. Was it as big as we'd have on the field? Of course not. But they've all grown a little bit. And I would be curious to see in MLS which of these teams you could see that they grew tactically from all of this film time, and which just like checked out and used the time as vacation.
It's fascinating, right? Isn't it fascinating what everybody's doing? Yeah.
Is that one of you guys?
Oh. Are y'all picking up some noise? Hold on. This is this audio setup. Oh no. All right, this thing may not work, y'all. Ben, I think we lost Ben.
That was interesting.
Can you hear
That was interesting.
Back at it.
Can you hear me? You can hear me, right? Yeah. Nope. All right, you can hear me now, right? Oh man, that is weird.
That was weird.
So
I thought I was.
And we lost Ben somehow. I think Ben disappeared. We got C. We'll figure
that his exit music? Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, hey, you never know what's going to happen here on the live stream. And in fact, I'm having to adjust some things all of a sudden here. Hold on just a second. We will get right back into it, hopefully, if this works.
Now imagine if you had whatever it was for the NFL draft.
Yeah.
How many people how many streams did that producer have to deal with?
Yeah.
All remote. You never know if the Wi-Fi is going to go out.
All right, you can still hear me, right? Yeah. You can hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well,
yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, I don't know what happened with Ben. Yeah.
I'm back now.
Oh, you are back. Okay, great. Well, Ben, I noticed you had frozen there for a second, so I'm gonna try to add y'all roughly back in where we were. Okay. Well, I'm gonna jump to. So I'm using this audio software to get it so I can play this podcast, and so typically it just shows up for people. If I play audio through this software, it shows up for people who are listening, but not for my Skype guests, and that's not fair because my Skype guests. So we're gonna shift over to this because Bobby is of the era of Shellis Heineman, and hopefully this thing will work smooth. And then I'm gonna turn it off, and we'll just go back to normal stuff. But Play by Players is a great podcast done by Bobby Boswell. And I've really enjoyed the episodes I've caught. And, of course, listening to Dax McCarty, I really appreciated that they sort of walked him through his timeline. And Bobby wanted to know about Shellis Heineman. And so we're going to listen to a little bit about Dax. And then I want, Bobby, I want some Shellis experiences. Here we go. Let's pick it up here.
I really feel, but Shellis to me has got to be one of the most misunderstood, or I don't even know. People just don't know enough about him. What can you shed some light on the Shellis regime?
Shellis regime was, I would definitely say, one of the weirdest, most frustrating times in my whole career. I was a younger guy coming up through the league, and Shellis, he just had a different way of coaching. I mean, there's really no other way to describe it. I don't want to say anything where I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm pretty sure Shellis never played the game at a high level. And he just coached. He was a college coach, essentially. He coached for 30 years at SMU. I believe he coached Clark Hunt, who is the owner of FC Dallas, his father, Lamar. I think Lamar really liked Schellas, and Clark, really liked Schellas, and they kept in touch and became close. And so whenever they were looking for a coach in, I believe, 2008, maybe, 2008, 2009, Schellas was at the top of the list, and they hired him. And, the biggest issue for me with Schellas was just that he treated everyone like they were still in college. He treated our team like it was a college team, right? And he was trying to hold everyone's hand, and he was kind of, I don't want to say disrespectful towards the older veteran guys, but he kind of just treated them like college kids, and I don't think they appreciated that too much. He had a lot of Schellas was the king of metaphors. He would always use different metaphors to describe stuff. One of them was the poor man's blanket. He loved this analogy where you would, if we conceded goals, or if we were not scoring goals in the attack, he would always say it's just like a poor man's blanket, right? You want to cover your feet and your head gets cold, and you want to cover your head and then your feet get cold. You can't ever really do both. And we were all just like, yeah, you can. you can. In soccer, you literally can coach a team to be better than the sum of its parts, and you can have a great defense and you can have a great attack. You just have to work through it, right? And so he would. All
right, I'll pause there for a second, because this is great stuff. I mean, and of course, it's crazy thinking about that, because he did lead this team to some success. Like it was a scoring team in 2010 that went all the way to the MLS Cup. But you have any metaphors, Schellas metaphors, Bobby? Or
I don't have any Schellas metaphors. I thought that Dax described a lot of it really well. Yeah.
I mean, I love the way you described it. It kind of makes me want to be the king of metaphors, or the wizard of metaphors.
I don't think that was a compliment, guys. I think that actual coaching would have gone farther than metaphors. And as I've gotten older, there's no coaching. So it's interesting that Dax felt that way, that he treated everyone like they're in college. I would say that he treated most of us, but he didn't. Fabian Castillo, he never said a bad word to. And Fabian was the worst for those first couple of years. He was the worst professional I was ever around. Training, showing up on time, just generally trying in practice. Incredible player. I like the kid, but a terrible professional. And Schellas never reprimanded him. Obviously, David Jackson, incredible player, terrible teammate. Who Schellas treated like he was his child. And then George John, Andrew Jacobson, myself, and Zach Lloyd were the people who he just the only word I could use, and I know that I'm a grown man and I was a professional athlete, but he just straight up bullied. And I think from Schellas' standpoint, and I'm not even we're talking abusive isn't even the right word. And his point was that we could take it. We had been through everything. We could, he would set the example on us. He would set the high bar on us, and everyone else would notice it and come along, which I think was largely true, except as Dax said, we were grown men. We were like, fuck this guy, I mean, that's why I had if you've read the book, that's why I left Dallas. I was like, I don't need this, dude. I'm a grown up. You're not even playing me. Andrew Jacobson was making $200,000, right? Zach and George are on the way to $300,000 contracts. So they dealt with it. And I was just like, dude, you're not even playing me and you treat me like crap. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just always, it makes me wonder, because Schellas did have some success. I mean, the wheels fell off eventually. But and is that more to, is that
yes.
just the truth? That's more just these players?
It was Hernandez.
Okay.
Hernandez was everything. The best leader you could ever. He was a man. We all have a vision of ourselves in social settings that we're strong and brave and social and likable. And Hernandez is all of that in two languages, right? So he could be charming, he could be hard, he could be kind and empathetic, and he could hold you accountable. I mean, you think about all of these things. He was so good. And then Ugo was a bridge because Shellis Shellis was really nice to Ugo because they had been together in college. So Ugo was this bridge between George and AJ and Dax and like Andrew Wiedemann and myself to Shellis. And he could make, even when we hated Shellis, he was like, guys, he has your best interest at heart. He's a good human being. And those two could keep the ship running, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That totally makes sense. And I was going to ask you about Ugo after Hernandez, how he fit into the equation. That's
and it was a galvanizing
and not surprising. Yeah,
and it was galvanizing. And Heath, and I would say the year before that, Heath was one of those guys too, where he had been through everything. And even though Shellis was like, mean, he could just be like, he could tell everyone, screw this guy, and it galvanizes the group. Which ironically actually happened with Colorado that year too. It was like two teams that rallied behind just strong leadership.
Strong leadership that was not the coach necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump ahead to. Let me see. I think I got it the right spot because Dax talks about Daniel Hernandez, and I missed it when Daniel retired and he was supposed to stick around with the team. There was some drama there and everything. Who knows? But man, Daniel was a tough dude, right? I mean, he was. Let's see if we can get this right.
You got something going on.
Daniel Hernandez, the toughest teammate I've ever had. Like, if you go into battle, like, you want that guy on your team. And for him to say that about Shellis, it could not be more true. Shellis is like a 9th degree black belt. You see him walk out on the field, and he's like limping. He can.
Oh, and I think the context is that Bobby Boswell saw Daniel Hernandez like in Miami at the All-Star game, and they were like, and Bobby asked him about Shellis Hyman, and Daniel said, "We don't talk about Shellis Hyman. We don't talk about Shellis. He could be in the bushes. Like, we don't talk about him."
Run. I never saw the guy run. Only a couple times where he tried to jog, and it just looked really uncomfortable. But the guy was like a 9th degree black belt. And every time we got into a little argument, I would always be like, is this guy just going to like karate chop me in the neck and like put me out of commission for a week? Like, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. But I'm sure most of the people listening to this are going to know about Shellis and his karate days. But one thing that you will definitely be able to find on YouTube is him getting kicked straight in the man parts and just going on about his day. I think the punter from SMU kicked him as hard as he could in the groin, and it just didn't faze him because he like did this Jedi mind trick where he told his groin to not feel pain in that moment, and then he didn't. So I think a good matchup would be to see if Zlatan and Shellis would be able to do like a kung fu fight, see who would come out on top. It'd be like Jackie Chan against Bruce Lee.
All right, well that's enough of that. But good stuff though. I really appreciated Dax's honesty in this interview. I highly recommend folks out there go check it out. But I mean, Dax is one of those other guys that I still wish was playing for FC Dallas.
Yeah, for sure. I think every club in the league would feel that way or should feel that way.
Yeah. But you always wonder what might have been, and also realize that if a guy like Dax is stuck around, it also the door wouldn't have opened to Kellen Acosta, to current guys, to Paxton, to other young guys coming up. So you always the clubs always have to make those tough decisions and stuff. But I think we fans don't understand the player side of things so much. The dynamics of the locker room. What happens when you're in a locker room with players that are tough to be around? And that happens at our workplaces. So I don't know why we imagine that everyone at a soccer club is like best friends or something, or coaches don't bring also their own baggage, their own limitations, and that teams can have success despite all of that stuff in the background because you have skilled players. So it's hard for us fans to really understand all that. So I appreciated Dax, and I appreciate folks like you sharing some of that too, kind of pulling back the curtain so that we see that there's this whole other world back there that's complicated and messy. I mean,
yeah, the alchemy of a team is so interesting. And it's why to this day, those players in a locker room who can help get that alchemy right is undervalued. They're not brought in often enough. They're not paid enough. Hopefully they will be in the future.
What would you say is thinking back to one of your best coaches you've had in your life playing soccer? What were some of the qualities that they had?
So the number one thing, and Jurgen Klopp talks about this all the time, and he's verbalized it, but I felt it with this guy, is the number one thing is it has to be a sense of optimism, right? There has to be a sense of energy around what you're doing so that, people want to be there. Because if you're not there, I mean, we can talk about tactics. Did you guys listen to the interview I did with Pablo Mastroeni for Extra Time last year? And Pablo verbalized it well. I actually think Pablo should take a more detail-oriented tactical approach. But his point is that, like, screw the tactics, man. If your players as people aren't focused, aren't confident, aren't happy, then nothing matters. These are people who you need to be at their peak performance. I don't remember what the question was, but I had a coach who was positive, who was optimistic, who was energetic, and made us excited to be there and part of the group. Not the smartest and most detail-oriented guy, but he wanted us to be there and be a part of what he was building. And that went a long way, and that's something I'll always remember.
That's great. I want to shift topics. Jose, do you want to talk about development stuff? Do you, United States Development Academy shut down? Kind of some of the big soccer news recently. What does this mean for FC Dallas? What does this mean for the development landscape?
Honestly, I think we're all just waiting to find out what MLS is going to do. Really, I mean, it's everyone that was crying that the DA was imperfect is suddenly all broken up about the DA not being around anymore. It just doesn't make any sense. You had all these people just saying how horrible it was, how it wasn't working, and now that it's gone, everybody's like, why'd you do that? And so I know people are cringing and complaining that MLS is gonna, take the charge and everything, but that's what has to happen. I mean, you name me. I mean, any other country where the top division isn't, in charge of all the academies and everything. I mean, yes, I know the argument is that the U.S. is way too big and there's not enough MLS cities. Mm-hmm. They'll have to figure out a way around that, but you got to start with MLS and then, take it from there. I mean, MLS has to lead the charge in this, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, so there's two parts to this question, as there are really in everything American soccer. What's best for U.S. soccer? And when I say U.S. soccer, not the entity, I mean American soccer, right? The soccer in this country, the national teams, the general culture and affection we have, and what's best for MLS. And I do not know if this is what's best for the country, right? If you only have 26 free programs, if you only let the 26 top teams, because even in Argentina and Brazil, the top teams play the non-top teams, and they smash them, but they're not totally isolated at 15, 16. Boca Juniors would still play somebody else from Buenos Aires. But what's best for MLS is probably this. They didn't want to smash some of the other teams. And more importantly, and to me, this is the thing that's undersold and has to get discussed more, is it's more dates to play international teams. Because one, it's really good competition, but more importantly, how do you get, if we can say that a player like Paxton Pomykal had a really good under-20 World Cup, why does the player for the U.S. who played 7.5 out of 10 not get sold, but the player for Argentina who was a 6.8 out of 10 does? Because they've got that precedent of Argentine, Brazilian, Uruguayan players. So I think one way you break that is you beat them at 18, 19, 20. And right now, American teams have always done okay at youth levels, but not at a high enough volume. So if I'm an MLS club, I say one of the most important things we need to do is show scouts and clubs around the world that LAFC and FC Dallas and Inter Miami can actually beat Boca Juniors and I'm blanking on the name of the Uruguayan club and Deportivo Cali and these traditional sell-in clubs.
So my question to you on this is, you're talking about international. Now, by that, a lot of people are taking it to mean that it means a lot more games against Liga MX.
For sure.
Youth academies, and I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. If your MLS is who are the other, big youth clubs that could give you that competition? I think you gotta go towards Liga MX, whether you like it or not.
For sure, not just Liga MX, but it's truly it's what happened to GA Cup. I mean, get the Brazilian teams, get the Colombian teams. All of these teams with a better track record of selling and it's not even just about helping our players grow, because it seems pretty clear that our players are undervalued, that could get sold and could do better in a world market than they are. You just have to prove that. So yeah, it's not just, for sure it's Liga MX, but I would actually say it's all of the South American clubs.
Agreed.
Well, you mentioned before we got started that you had a little bone to pick with FC Dallas about this, and
it's not a bone. It's just a harsh reality, and we can talk about. You guys asked if we could talk about MLS. I think that Doyle has set the narrative about a lot of things. I think he has set the narrative about FC Dallas being this great academy, and the hard truth, guys, is that FC Dallas has neither created a starter for the U.S. men's national team, nor ever sold a player that came through its academy and played for the first team. And that is not many MLS teams have done that. But I think when you actually talk about facts and production, we have built FC Dallas to have accomplished something, and they're on a pedestal, when really the two, we can put trophies aside, but in two key metrics, it's an offer. And I think Dan Hunt, going back to what's good for MLS and what's good for American soccer, Dan Hunt is going to change that. Dan Hunt and Richie Grant up in Philadelphia are changing that paradigm, and they are hugely important to American soccer. And Luchi Gonzalez is the best young coach in MLS right now. But they're still over in those two huge categories.
So if, as the rumors suggest, and Jose posted this in our Slack channel, that Reggie Cannon gets sold, now it probably won't be this summer because of this lockdown, and who knows what the transfer market will be like. But let's say in the winter, Reggie goes to a Bundesliga team, advances, grows as a player. I mean, that would be what you're saying, their first real success in that, right?
It would be a step in the right direction. And listen, obviously, FC Dallas Academy is awesome and doing things more than most other teams. But I want to tamper it down from this huge success to put up on a pedestal. So I actually think that Reggie's chances of going abroad have increased because MLS should benefit hugely from what's happening to the world market, because you have these players who are undervalued. But as teams can't afford the higher price points, they will now turn to the Reggie Cannon. So if you want an $8 million player and you can no longer afford an $8 million player, you go down to the $2 million. So I would have said Reggie Cannon was not going to get sold. And probably the wrong platform for this. Reggie Cannon was not good last year, right? He was fine, but he was not he got benched because he just wasn't good enough. Reggie Cannon is a very good player. He did not perform up to par. He had a down sophomore season. That he did not do enough with his club team to warrant Bundesliga. Does he have the ability to play in Bundesliga? Probably, but you have to show it first. What's that?
Hard. It's hard. Yeah. No. No.
Maybe I'm speaking. I think Reggie Cannon's a good player. I'm just surprised that people let him off the hook last year for having a relatively down club year, coming off his rookie year.
I mean, I would say it was a sophomore year. I mean, it was up and down. There were definitely growing moments, but there were moments that he, was really the best option for the team. I mean, that's maybe not always the best, but he was good. But yeah, but there were moments too last season where you wanted a player like Reggie to step up and get this team over these draws, these tough matches. I mean, you wanted to see
add something on that. I want to add something on that. I want to say, from the FC Dallas fan point of view, I think a lot of people blamed his performance on those USMNT call-ups, because he, coming off of those, where he was asked to do something completely different there than what he did in Dallas, it seemed to really affect his play once he returned to Dallas. And Dallas has experience with that, where, when we've had players go play for the United States, they've come back and they haven't been themselves, or they haven't played as well as they were. So a lot of people just chalked it up to that. So I think a lot of people gave him a pass. Maybe it's not fair to say it that way, but I think a lot of people did that. And that's why
2017, man.
I think in Dallas itself, not as opposed to the rest of the country or the world, whatever. In Dallas, they kind of give him a pass, but I know what you're saying is that you can't ignore the fact that he had a bad year, and therefore it's not like he was in demand.
Yeah, maybe not bad, but not good enough. We can say.
Yeah.
Ben, I want you in on this. I mean,
obviously 2017 they were rolling towards a third consecutive 60-point season, and then Kellen and Matt go to the Gold Cup, and just everything fell apart after that.
That thing with Hedges at the Gold Cup was like, to this day, one of the weirdest things. Like he was so bad at gold. Hedges has been the best set defender in MLS, like on average over 7 years since 2012. So basically since probably the 14 season. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 8 over a 6-year span has probably been the best defender. And he was so bad at gold, so bad like you knew it wasn't even him, and you have to give him another chance.
Yeah,
he's got Chad Marshall syndrome.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we could get into that all day because that has been so frustrating. I mean, that's been so when a national team, and of course, now I went and saw with my son. I took my son here in Audi Field in D.C. to see the U.S. men's game against Cuba, where they, Reggie looked incredible in that game, and so did Weston McKennie. Another, but yeah, like on the other hand. That's Cuba. Everybody looks good against Cuba,
Hedges fits what Berhalter wants, right? Hedges is a better passer than, obviously I love Walker too, but Hedges is a better passer than Walker, He's calmer on the ball than Walker. Matt fits all these profiles where he should, but that Gold Cup 2017 has scared people away from the notion that he's a national team player. So I'd be excited if he got another chance. I think it'd be awesome for everyone.
Who was the coach of the U.S. men's national team 2017, the Gold Cup? Do you remember?
Are you trying to needle me?
Yes.
Do I need to remind everybody you got banned by Reggie Cannon? Is that why you were so careful?
Yeah. So at some point,
responding to Bobby's critique,
one of the great shames.
streak?
Yeah, one of the great. I think after the Dallas played at Chicago last year, and it was a terrible game. It was just one of those games where it's like the defense just
4-0,
3-0. And it was like over after like 20 minutes or something, and just dumb plays, and and I complained on Twitter, and I think Reggie blocked me. But now I can see. I saw his post about getting married, so I thought I'm okay now. But we almost had him on the show too. We were so who knows,
So smart and articulate. I would keep a running list when I was in MLS of the players who I would feel comfortable bringing on camera with us. And Reggie was one of them. Yeah. Reggie is so smooth, so smart. So if he does get on here, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, Ben, we're going to close out with you asking, we can get into MLS stuff. Ben, do you want to go there?
So you made your season predictions pre-pandemic. What are your post-pandemic picks, Bobby?
I didn't. I never made predictions this year, guys. It felt great. I was totally off the hook on any predictions, and it's the best I felt in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I will say I would have had FC Dallas probably in the top 3 in the West. I said last year that Dallas was the best. LAFC aside, right? Because the messy side aside, I thought Dallas were the best team in the West last year. Now, would I pick them to win a game? And this is where stupid soccer semantics come in. I'm not sure I would have picked FC Dallas to beat Portland or Seattle in the playoffs, but you're talking about teams and star players and big moments aside. I thought FC Dallas was the top team in the West outside LAFC, and I would only expect that to improve this year, assuming Paxton figured out his whatever's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, sticking with that, you and MLS parted company toward the end of last year. What are you doing with yourself nowadays, Bobby?
Yeah, my contract was up. We didn't come to new terms, and I was excited to do something new. So I didn't know what that was. I just knew that I didn't want to do media the rest of my life. I didn't want to do it. And they made a nice offer, and this is in some ways a very ungrateful thing to say. I didn't want to do it for what they were offering in that moment. not just for that, but like looking forward. I mean, looking what's going on to media in this world, it's really scary. And I wasn't prepared to, to like get married and have kids in that world. So I do have some things happening. I can't talk about them yet. I'm excited for them. They're like new and different. So at some point I'll be able to talk about them, but not quite yet. But it worked out. I feel like I took a little bit of a risk, and it seems to be working out.
We'll look forward to seeing what those things are.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Bobby's moving to Bolivia to become a cocaine kingpin.
That would be great. more job security than American soccer media.
Well,
probably.
I just had my athletic subscription come up, and I'm like, oh, do I wonder? Did I really read this enough? And I want to support those guys. I want to support, so it's like I'm going through this crisis now. But yeah, I put up a quick snapshot of when the dream became a reality. And you know what? I apologize, Bobby. I told you I was going to buy the book last time. I didn't, but it is officially ordered. And I didn't get a used copy. So you should get 10 cents for Amazon.
Are they selling used copies on there?
Of course,
I gotta look into that.
Amazon sells everything, man.
Those jerks.
They will sell you all kinds of used stuff too. Toilet paper used. Oh, okay. Pandemic life.
Who knows? Maybe.
But I can't wait to read it. And what else am I doing in my time? I got a lot of time to read books right now. Some of us do, at least.
Seriously.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to. So, I mean, you can't talk about it yet, so I'm assuming it's coaching a Premier League team. I mean, that's what I'm.
That would be great. That would be great. I'm trying to spin off a couple of these championships to my U15 girls into a Premier League job.
Go for it. That'd be fun.
The circuitous route through Fantasy Manager 2020.
I know, right?
Start out U15 women's, and then
There you go.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I will say this, Bobby. You were one of the reasons why I paid attention to the MLS stuff. I loved reading your stuff. Of course, even before you made it to Major League Soccer, some of your articles just gave a completely different insight to the life of a pro soccer player, and it was stuff that we really needed to read. And then I just loved, I just loved your takes on extra time and stuff, and sometimes it seemed like the guys would razz you a little bit and stuff, but you just seemed to bring something different to the table. You were always trying to understand things from a little different perspective, and sometimes it was because you had some experience, but I know some of those guys had experience too. I just really appreciated your perspective,
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot, because as you guys know, in the grind of it, most of the feedback is negative. First of all, from you guys want to know the inner workings. Within the company, there's zero feedback, right? Like, I never once in 2+ years was told good job, bad job, do this, don't do this. And then from fans, it's 98% negative, right? Mostly from two fan bases. So I appreciate those kind words. And it is what it is, but you don't usually get that. So I appreciate that.
Wait, two fan bases? Can we guess? Jose, can we guess?
I would guess it would be the Inventors of Soccer Part 1
the Inventors of
Part
Soccer.
2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really? Oh. I mean, it couldn't have been the FC Dallas fans because there's 10 of us.
I know, and you guys are always nice to me. What I will say is, from a content perspective, it hurt because you want to be right and smart, and even though people have no idea, right? They started watching soccer 6 months ago, and they're jerk offs. It hurts, and then you realize, and at some point, it comes to you where it's it doesn't matter, right? You don't have to be right or smart. They're paying attention. I wish, as a content creator, I had leaned into it more, because I could have done that. I could have leaned into more to my unconventional thought process and my unconventional take, so to speak. So if I had a redo, I would have. I would have done that differently.
I find it fascinating you didn't get any feedback. Isn't Simon Borg the editor? He seems totally insane, and he would tell you anything, good, bad, or
amazing. So he did about writing. Simon's an amazing boss, because OGs of MLS think of Simon as this crazy person on camera. Simon is actually literally the hardest worker I've ever been around. Soccer, anything. More hours, more dedication, works so hard, really creative, really smart. he gave feedback on my writing element because he was the editor-in-chief of that. But the people who were in charge of on camera, like literally nada. You know, somebody once told me to use my hands less when I was doing lineups at the board, but that's it.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. Yeah, we all need that. We all need some feedback. We need some dialogue.
This is ubiquitous, right? This is ubiquitous about these things. Everyone needs. You know, I talked to my girlfriend who manages people, and I asked her like, "Did you get feedback this month?" And she's like, "I meant to, and I didn't do it." You know, it's nobody does. It's just a general problem in the workforce.
Yeah.
And I remember that as I do what I do next. You know.
Well, we're gonna start to wrap this thing up. Bobby, is Berhalter? Is it gonna work?
I think so. Yeah, you're really gonna wrap it up on a question that opens up a 15-gallon can of worms?
Oh, maybe. Well, we can go a little bit. Keep going.
Yes,
I
do think. Yeah. I think it works. Well, I think it works for a variety of reasons. One, because you've got to mess up for it not to work, right? Like, we forget that. We're still in CONCACAF. There's still 4 teams that make it. Like, you've got to really mess up for it not to work. We're talking about working means, like, beating Costa Rica once, you know, getting a tie against Mexico. So, on a larger perspective, I do, partially because I do think the players are going to get better. And largely, I just think Greg's a good coach. I think he's the coach that, and I wouldn't die on this hill, but I would build strong arguments. He's the coach we needed right now for this American men's soccer program. And I understand the arguments against that, and they're fine. But for his style of play, his openness and articulation about his style of play, I do think it works out.
Ben.
Oh, what?
What do you think, Ben? I mean,
I think they should have hired Poppy, of course. You know, a pragmatic genius who could coach you through walls. Which, I mean, I thought that's what we needed after falling out of the World Cup.
I don't disagree with that. I'm okay with that, right? Like, I wouldn't say that's wrong. I just think that for the American soccer audience who I've like been a part of and watched for 25 years now since I was a little kid. There needs to be a sense of ownership and dominance to the game if we're going to like take this team to the next. And I think you have to win, obviously. But God, Oscar's teams were boring, man. Like, they were always looked inferior. And I don't think that you can take that to a mass market in the American sports scene. Whereas when you watch Greg's teams play, you might know from a soccer standpoint, like what he's doing is kind of crazy at times, but it looks like they're the better dominant team. And there's more to why I believe in Greg than that, but that to me is why he separates from Oscar.
Well, I mean, but go.
I think I just want to say on Oscar, my opinion on Oscar was that his teams tended to play to the level of their opposition, and he was more happy to like grind out points. I mean, back-to-back 60-point seasons. The guy was great at getting his teams to get that draw, get that win. We'd all complain that we weren't beating teams impressively or this and that, but the guy knew how to get those points. And I think that's the difference. Is that was my opinion on him.
Yeah.
That his teams played to the level, and sometimes that could be good, and sometimes that could be bad, because that means sometimes you lose to teams you shouldn't lose to, and you beat teams you shouldn't beat.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that argument that if you were to come up with probabilities, we had Oscar and Greg, I think that the probability we make the World Cup is like 2 or 3 points. If it's 90, if it was, it's probably 99% with Oscar and 96% with Greg. But the ceiling is much higher with Greg. And at some point, we need to push that ceiling with that coach, with the overall quality of players, with the way the game looks. And I'd be willing to take the risk with that. Wow. Acknowledging that Oscar would also be a very good coach, and Peter Vermees and Jesse and Tata and all would have been good choices too.
Matt, one of our viewers, Matt Forster, wrote in, "I've fallen asleep watching Greg's teams." Now, I mean, look, it worked. I was there for the Cuba game, took my son, and it was, and for a minute you got it. I mean, of course it's Cuba, and like 3 of their players defected before the game, and what do you do? Yeah. But, Reggie was bypassing 2 or 3 lines to open up attacking opportunities with his passes. I mean, you saw what Greg was trying to do, what kind of system he was putting in place. The question is, will it translate when the guys have enough time together to really master that tactical style? And those are all complicated issues. So that's why I understand the Poppy. We want a guy who's just going to bring in these pieces and inspire them to make something happen, which has some legacy in the United States men's national team history, right?
Yeah, I'm totally again, this is where I think we've lost a bit of the plot with Twitter, with both American programs, is just the dialogue. I think what you guys are saying is fair. If Oscar had played that way and won us a Gold Cup and gotten us to the World Cup and gotten us to the quarterfinals, it seems very plausible to me. If you would put the decision in my hands, I'm fine hiring Greg for a different set of reasons. Mm-hmm. I think that both are viable.
Well, great. All right, well, let's end it there. This has been a great show. Bobby, really appreciate you coming on. And you're safe? Your girlfriend's safe, right? Everything's
We're safe.
Good?
Yeah,
good.
Not the best time to live in a small apartment in New York City, but we're doing okay.
Yeah, I know.
Hang in there.
Yeah. And I'm down in Maryland, and Maryland's we're doing a little bit better. We're doing a little bit better, but we're still not out of this yet. And I know Ben's in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's a different place.
Just read Boomtown. Ben, I read Boomtown. I feel like I know Oklahoma intimately.
Wow.
I'm from Oklahoma too, Bobby, and I read Boomtown too, and it's an interesting book, isn't it? It's an interesting book. Yeah. Flaming Lips.
Ben definitely would have been the guy riding the train into the middle of town to get that plot of land. He wasn't going to play by the rules.
I mean, I come from 2 long-term Okie families, so one ancestor probably did.
Jose's up in Wisconsin. Yeah,
it's nice over here. I mean, it's still kind of crazy, but I'm in a small town, so just stay in my big yard and ignore the neighbors, and I'm all good.
Sounds nice, guys. That sounds nice. Well, this was great, man. I always appreciate when you guys have me on.
No, it's great, Bobby, and I wish you the best on what's coming next, man. I hope to keep reading more of your stuff, though, regardless. And I always say those doors aren't closed, so maybe there'll be a chance for you a platform for you to do that different perspective in the future. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Jose. Thanks, Ben. We appreciate you, and we all wish there was soccer to wake up to or to get back to. But, hey, we'll make the most of it and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you. Of course, check out bigdsoccer.com for some fun stuff. Jose's doing a whole series on FIFA 20, taking FC Dallas to the bottom of the English pyramid and working their way up to dominate. And I just wrote a salty Football Manager 2020 review, which I conclude the game is trash. It's trash. It's awful. You should probably buy it. So, all right. Okay. We'll see ya. All right.